welcome to Hemlocks and Loons. This is another episode of the Gear Room, and today we're going to be talking about assembling a stove board. What is a stove board, you may ask? Well, a stove board is just that. It's a board that you attach your stove to, and you mostly are going to use this for winter camping. The reason you want a stove board during winter camping is it can be difficult to find or create a nice level spot to cook on with your stove. And with a stove board, it gives you a bit of a platform that you can more easily find a nice place in the snow to set it. The stove board also allows the heat to be reflected away from the stove and not cause that snow that's underneath your stove to melt, or at least not melt as quickly as it would if you didn't have a stove board. This is a quick look at the stove board we're going to be putting together today. So it consists of a board. This one has aluminum foil on it to also help reflect that heat, and then it also gives you a surface that's easy to clean. You have your fuel bottle attached, and then you have your stove attached. And the way the stove is attached on here, it's made to be removed so you can pack all of this away and just have the board separate from the fuel and the stove. So let's get into it. We'll start putting this thing together. I don't have an exact plan on how to put this together. I've bought a bunch of materials and we're gonna figure it out together and make it work, but this is what the end product's gonna end up looking like. And hopefully you'll see us out on a trip here soon where we'll get a chance to use it out in the woods. Okay, so here's my Whisperlite stove, and I thought I would just kind of go over how I decided to do this. So here's my stove. I went through my scrap wood and just to see what I had. I was looking potentially for a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. 1/4 inch was just too thin, too flexible. So this is 5/16, and I found this sheet and I went and tested it, kind of looked how things were. This one here is exactly 12 inches across, and it is just shy of 24 inches long. And I played with this a bit to kind of figure out what was going to work, and I decided that this 12 inches across was perfect, but probably 15 or so inches would work. So before I cut this piece up, I decided to look and see if there was anything else. Going through my scrap wood pile, I came across this. It was from another project. I made several of these for having in a vehicle so that you could throw this underneath a jack in sandier soil conditions, which we have a lot of sand in this part of northern Wisconsin. The UP does as well. This one here is also 12 inches across, and it is 15.5 long. So I took this and tested it out, and the stove sits on here pretty well. The other thing was I like the idea that having this handle, so when I'm in camp I can carry it around easier even with the stove locked on it. And then too, if I need to hang it up on something, I can do that as well. And then one of the 4 corners on here was already rounded, so I will go and round the other 3 corners. And then the handle needs to be sanded out as well. I think I used 1.25 inch bit to drill out the 2 ends of this, and then I just connected the 2 circle holes to make this. It looks like that opening is 1 inch from the edge of the board, and from end to end it's 4.5 inches. So let's go over to the table and we'll mark these out. I gotta double check. I think I just used a plastic container from some electrical tape to make this radius. I'll check it on this one. If it's the same, I'll go ahead and use that same to mark out the other 3 radiuses. And then after we get those cut, we'll go ahead and get this all sanded down, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, all that's left now is to get out the sander and hit these corners, and I think we'll be good. And that's it. That's all the sanding we need to do. Okay, so now we're finished with the board. It's all cut and sanded. We got the nice rounded corners, got a nice handle here, nice grip. And so now we need to move on to the next part, which is determine where we're going to put everything. So the first thing we're going to start with is the fuel bottle. I'm going to put the fuel bottle down at this end because I have the handle over on this end. So that way if I go to hang it up or anything, two things. Then the weight's down at the bottom end of the board, and also that way if any fuel leaks out of the bottle, it will be right on the edge and have the shortest distance to roll, and that way it's not moving back towards where the flame is or where your food's potentially going to be. I just think that's the best bet. So I'm going to line this up. Doesn't need to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. But what I'm going to do is draw a quick line down both sides, because we got to figure out where we're going to drill holes. And what we're going to use on this is some bungee cords and a cord lock in order to tighten this up and keep it in place. So I'm simply going to grab my pencil, come on a bit of an angle, and just draw a line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, try to keep about that same angle, and draw a line. Then when I take this off, looks like that's just shy of 2 inches. It should wrap around. Next we kind of got to decide where those holes are going to be and how we're going to wrap this around there. So I think we're going to put a stopper knot on the end, wrap it over once, it'll go under, come back out, go under, and then slide over, and that's where the cord lock will be. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And I just got some rough marks on here, and we'll see what those distances are and keep those all even. So one's at 1.5 inches and one's at 1.25 inches. So I think we'll stick with the 1.5 inches. And then I'm just going to transfer those across to the other side. So I have green and I have red of this accessory bungee cord. I don't have enough to use all green on it, but I think what I'm going to do is use green for half of it and red for the other half. Just to, I don't know, style it up maybe a little bit. So I'm going to measure this, and then I'll go get the drill and a drill bit, and we'll drill out these holes.
Okay, so I have this aluminum. It's 1/16 of an inch thick by 1/2 inch wide by 3 feet long, and this is what we're going to be using to attach the legs of the stove to the stove board. I just have some tin snips here. These will more than do the job to cut through this. And this doesn't need to be exact, but I'm going to cut it just under 2 inches, so somewhere right in here. And what I'm looking to make is basically something like this. I was just playing around with it before, trying to figure out what would work, and I think this is what's going to do it. So before we get started, we're just going to clean up these edges so that they're not sharp. We don't want to cut or snag anything on them. You know, this is most likely going to be going in and out of a bag of some sort. We're going to use a big pair of needle nose pliers and a pair of channel locks to bend this. We end up with something like that. Somewhat close to the other one. This one's a little bigger, but like I said, these don't need to be perfect. Then we're going to use a 7/32 drill bit to drill a hole down in it. This is so we can secure it to the wood. Not as centered as I would like, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then I'm going to use these screws. I can't remember what size they are, but I'm going to use a 9/64 bit to drill a hole in the board so we don't crack the board when screwing this in. So since I got the 2 of these, I'm going to install the 2 of them. This one I already drilled out. I did kind of figure out that if I put this one over here like that, and then we have this one as the only adjustable one, that will work for putting this in here. So I'm going to put this one on, and then we'll figure out the adjustable piece. And so now we just need to figure out the piece that's going to sit here. Okay, and with those like that, it'll be all locked down. So we just got to figure out this piece now. Okay, they're not perfect, but it's a lot less metal I need to remove now. So it's not pretty, but I think it'll work. Okay, now that I got this piece cut, I need to get this all lined up. This is a 3/16 inch bit that I'm going to use for this hole. I want it all the way forward so that when this slides, so I can't seem to find a washer at the moment.
Now that we have it all assembled, we're going to have to go and take everything apart on this and get this back down to just the wood. Because we're going to add a little bit of aluminum foil, and we're going to use some spray glue to attach it. And that way we get a nice surface that'll not only help reflect the heat up, but also keep this a little cleaner. So let's get all this stuff off and get to applying the aluminum foil. I cut the piece of aluminum foil just to get it out ahead of time so I didn't have to be messing with it with the glue on it. So the can says to spray it and let it sit for a minute or so, let it start getting tacky before you start putting the material on. So let's get that done. Okay, so our minute is up, and I went and lifted it off of here and folded this paper over so that the overspray from when I sprayed the board doesn't adhere to the aluminum foil as well. So here's the foil. And so I'm using this window, I think it's a scraper that is designed for a window covering, but I know they use it for like adhering striping and stuff to cars. Just want to get all those bubbles out of it, make it nice and smooth. I am scraping it, scratching the aluminum up a little bit doing this, but I'm fine with that. Thinking what's best now is I'm going to put something heavy on top of this to help it adhere, and we'll leave it overnight. Okay, so it's the next day. We let this dry overnight, and we're going to cut the edges off of it and see how it looks. So there it is. Looks like we're having a slight issue with the corners. And it seems like it's pretty much just the corners, not so much the edge all the, well, a little bit of the edge all over here. not wanting to stick down. So what I'm thinking is we may have to add some additional glue to that edge, but we can do that later. In the meantime, we're going to go and put the rest of the screws, holes, and all that back in. So here's the final product. I think it turned out great. I think it's going to work very well. I got a little bit of loose aluminum foil on some of these edges. I think I'm going to use some super glue and see if I can get those to adhere a little bit better. It's not too many places, just a couple, but we'll get that done. It hangs up real well. It all stays on there very well. It's not going to fall off. So that brings us to the end of this video. If you'd like to see this thing in action, I plan on doing a winter camping trip here in another week or so, and that'll be a 2-night adventure into Sylvania Wilderness. But if you check out that video, you'll get to see this thing in action. And thanks for watching. See you on the next one.